Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, one of the co-hosts of the Enough to Keep Going weekly games podcast here on the E2KG Network podcast channel on YouTube, as well as one of the co-hosts of the Basement Radio Arcade podcast on BRAPS channel on YouTube, back with another episode of the Enough to Keep Going weekly games podcast. This is episode number 371 for the 12th of January, 2025. Here with me, as always, I have my stalwart partner in crime, Mr. Tao Master 99. How you doing, Tao?
I'm doing good. Nice to be here tonight.
Very cool, very cool. We have a chock full agenda that is probably way overstuffed beyond what it is normally. So on a lot of these topics, we're going to move like really quickly because I do need to wrap up kind of on time ish. I have a super incredibly out of the ordinary normal early day tomorrow. So without much further ado, let's get to it. Now, I felt like so you at the tail end of last week's segment 1 conversation said you wanted to ask me a follow-up question this week when we did the deep dive on our Call of Duty Black Ops 6 to talk about maps. As I prestiged this week for the first time, I figured, well, season 2 starts here in about just a little over 2 weeks. We've kind of been through like the vast majority of season 1 at this point, so it's probably a good time just to do kind of a season 1 retrospective, season 1 in review kind of session while we talk about maps, talk about the prestige system, because I've got some questions I want to ask you about that. So let's get to it.
Is this considered season 1 or is it season 0? Because I don't think it's a full season, is it? Because the battle pass doesn't seem like it had like a full season worth of stuff.
Yeah,
this is shorter than normal.
Yeah, it is labeled as season 1.
Oh, it is season 1? Okay.
Yeah. So I can't remember what the launch day was, but season 0 would have been from launch day until through November 13th, and then season 1 launched on November 14th.
Okay.
And that's what we've been in for the last couple of months. So I'll start off with the big meatball question on the front end rather than wait to the end. Do you think this is the best? I'll give you your pick. You could say the best season, or you could say just the best set of launch maps that there's been in Call of Duty for some period of time.
And just to preface this, and I've mentioned this in the past, I only played a little bit of the Modern Warfare 3, kind of at the tail end the last couple of months before Black Ops 6 came out, and then before that I hadn't played one since Cold War, so I did have a little bit of missing Call of Duty time there. But as far as the stuff that I've played so far, yeah, I think this is probably one of their best kind of launch maps that they've done. There's only maybe a couple in there that I kind of really only one, and that was one of the new ones that I'm kind of like I don't like playing it at all right now. But otherwise, like just overall, I think it's like their best set of maps that they've put out in quite a while, actually. Even just in the Black Ops series too. Like 3 was fine, or I mean not 3. Cold War was fine. But some of those were kind of like, I was kind of wishy-washy on those maps, even though I like the gameplay and stuff overall. But yeah, I definitely would say these are pretty good maps as far as I've played. There's a few I haven't played. I'm assuming they're tied to other game modes, like the Pit I haven't played, and I think Gala also might be another one that I haven't played yet.
Yeah, I don't know what game modes they'd be tied to that keep them out of your rotation. Now that's because I don't know how you have your filter set for find a match. But the Pit definitely comes up in regular multiplayer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, in what they've historically done, what they've definitely done in the modern era, and I would say again, people who are familiar with the show have heard me comment in the past. Like I kind of would label myself as a player of the modern era of Call of Duty, because my return, again, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the original Modern Warfare 2 was where I dropped out. And then I came back to the game with the Modern Warfare reboot of 2019. So I was off of Call of Duty for about a decade where I just didn't play the game. So in that time since I've been back, what I feel like they've done is they definitely kind of tune what the rotation is periodically. drive like certain maps coming up more often and certain maps, coming up less often. I've always assumed that it's, as they get feedback from players and hear that there are certain maps players don't like, they that one doesn't come up in rotation. I think most infamously to me in recent history was in Modern Warfare, I think it was 2, um, the long corridor like map that you had at the Mexican border crossing was just, I mean, frustrating as all get out in many, many, many different types of modes in many, many, many different ways. And there was definitely a point in season, I want to say 3, maybe 2, where like that thing just stopped coming up. Like, I mean, I went for weeks just not seeing it at all, and it hadn't been pulled out of the rotation. It was in the rotation. It would just come up so infrequently that I would barely ever see it. And then there was a point where it came back into rotation more frequently. There was a point where the market seem to come up like less frequently. So there's they definitely tune the affinity and like whatever the pseudo random number generation is that they use for the maps. But that being said, for instance, Scud, like I made this list of all the maps. So Babylon, Derelict, Gala, Lowtown, Payback, Pit, Protocol, Red Card, Rewind, Scud, Skyline, Stakeout, Extraction, Heirloom Hideout, Racket, Hacienda, and Nuketown. And that doesn't even, I mean, that doesn't even mean that there's not one that I've missed. Cause like, for instance, when you go look for map listings, like no site that I hit like actually listed Nuketown as like a map, right? It's just like a given in Call of Duty now. Um, and I've got, so from my return, Modern Warfare, I didn't really take Call of Duty seriously. Black Ops Cold War, I got really serious about Call of Duty, and like to the point where like I would pull down map schematics on my iPad and like I would be studying them during the day, and figuring out and learning the respawns and all that kind of stuff.
You're doing the esports style, like you're gonna, go for a championship or something.
Right. I have gone back to in the last couple of years to the point where, I carried that through probably Modern Warfare 2, but then Modern Warfare 3 and this year until I made this list, I've definitely kind of gone back to like there are maps like that I know, but I like don't know what their names are. It's kind of like streets in my hometown. It's like, people are like, can you give me directions? Or like, no, you can look them up on GPS because I don't know any of the street names. I just know how to get there. So I know like a lot of these maps, but I didn't know them by name. But Tao, any of these, any of those that that stick out to you as ones that you really enjoy?
Yeah. So a few, but real quick before that, I was looking up those 2 maps, and actually, Racket's another one. So they say, besides 2v2, which obviously I don't play in 2v2, they say they're face-off maps, which I'm not sure what the face-off is. Is that a mode, or is that like a set of modes? Or so
So
I've seen that come up too in the list, like when I'm playing and stuff, but I usually don't have it picked.
yeah, it seems weird this year. So Black Ops Cold War, and I assume in previous iterations of Black Ops, Face Off. So Black Ops Cold War, Face Off was a mode, and so it was 3v3 most of the time. Um, and uh, and there it was 3v3, and I want to say no score streaks because they would all be like internal maps, so score streaks like wouldn't make sense. Um, and like like allowing somebody to set up a sentry gun like in a map like that was so enclosed and small would be ridiculous. And so that was like those maps back then was, and I don't know if you remember, but there was like a subway station. There was the KGB library, and there were a few others. And those maps, they will sometimes be used for 3v3. They will they're definitely like the main maps that are used for 2v2, for gunfight and things like that. Um, in Black Ops Cold War, they would then also repurpose those maps and allow uh like a 6v6 like mosh pit. So there were maps that were made expressly for 3v3 and 2v2, but they would then they would have LTMs where they would like pop them into rotation for some just crazy like 6v6 like mosh pit kind of stuff. Um, so this year though, I haven't seen the 3v3 mode. So in general, like like 50% of the reason like you would even make maps like that small, they don't seem to be using for that purpose. So I tend to see them come up in um in they seem to be just coming up in the regular rotation. So like the major one that I think that everybody knows is what is it doesn't seem to be in this list. It's something. Oh, stakeout. I think it's stakeout. That's the one that's like a little. It's like a little level of like two apartments or something like that. Um, and I've gotten that in in TDM in Kill Confirmed and in HVT in particular. It gets really crazy there.
So do you have that face-off check then in your list of modes? You don't?
No, that's what I'm saying. I have
That's
not.
weird. Yeah.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it this year as a mode. They when those maps come up, you'll see the term face off like in the map list, like when they give the little um the
Like the
now
voting
what is now
option.
like the three choice, right, the three multiple choice voting list. You'll see them labeled as a face off map.
Oh, okay. That's weird. Yeah, I've never seen these. I've never seen these maps. That's why I was like, oh yeah, I don't recognize these ones. But yeah, that might I don't know. It might just be something weird with the way I have my stuff set up. But to answer your questions, yeah, there's probably at least three, maybe even four, really. So derelict, um, rewind, skyline, and extraction are probably like my top four right now, and probably like skyline and derelict. Which skyline is that like it's like a giant house or maybe apartment complex or something. I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like a big condo, like
yeah,
penthouse suite or something like that. I don't know.
yeah, and then derelict's the kind of the train. There's like a train station basically there. So those two are probably like my top, but then those other two, I mean, I really like too. Um, the derelict kind of reminds me of firing range back in I think the first two Black Ops games. Kind of just a kind of long corridor, basically. There's a couple of different. There's like a little building in the middle of the fire range where it kind of splits off. So it kind of splits off, your avenues of attack. So that's kind of like in Dare, like you have the train basically right in a couple of trains right in the middle of the map. So it kind of does that too. And Fire Range was one of my like favorite maps of like all time, and hopefully they'll see that in like a DLC or something. But that kind of reminds me of that. And just Skyline, I just like the kind of flow of that, where it's just like, you got the one side kind of high up, both sides basically have a high up, vantage point of the kind of the pool in the middle. And then you have a little section on the side where it's like a little corridor too. So I don't know, it just kind of flows pretty well for me. And then you have that underground kind of secret tunnel kind of going underneath like the elevator shaft and stuff like that, where, I use that quite often actually, and get the drop out of many of enemies, because I don't know if people just forget about it, or like I don't know. I don't ever see a lot of people, even up to now. Like I don't see a lot of people using that little underground passageway, so it's kind of weird. But there's kind of those sneaky things I like to kind of find in maps. So and then probably the other one is extraction, as far as like larger maps. That's a pretty good one. It's kind of that, I think it's an airport or maybe just some kind of, it looks like there's a control tower there that you can, on the one side, you can kind of get on top of for
Yeah,
sniping and
it's like
stuff.
a harbor. I don't know what I want to call it, but I mean
Yeah,
yeah, I mean it has a helipad on it, but it's
yeah,
also like it's it's like a coastal port facility. Like I think is what
yeah.
it is.
So yeah, as far as the larger maps. There's some decent larger maps in there. That yeah, those four are definitely five that I've really been enjoying so far. I don't know if anything's stuck out to you so far.
I'm a fan of Skyline too. I seem to tend to do pretty well on that map, in particularly in HVT mode. Um, and I enjoyed Extraction as well. We watched some gameplay last week. That's one that I've won free for all maps and stuff on. Once you figure out that where people just are going to respawn pretty consistently. Um, So Nuketown continues to obviously be, a favorite of mine. What I was getting around to before, and I realized I never like really made the final comment, that whole tuning the attenuation of like what maps come up most frequently in the rotation. Scud is one that like I've never gotten uh before today. Like, so I played on Scud the first time today. So I think I actually like Gala as well, which I think is a face-off map because it's very enclosed. It's really both teams spawn on either side of kind of that big rotunda in the middle. I've gotten that a few times for HVT, and HVT has been really fun on that map. Um, Trying to think. Red Card is also one that I really like. Um, that has a lot of verticality. It's got like three kind of distinct levels, and those levels, um, and you've got those levels on like both ends of the map. You have that weird point where you can come out of one of like I guess one of like the TV control rooms or something like, or the production rooms, and you come out and you're for a brief like stretch you're actually in the stadium, and you've got a couple paths where you can run along the stands. I think there's one point where somebody can get up kind of like not a full level up but like a half level, and can kind of be like in front of the seats or whatever. I think. So yeah, that one pulls some things, is nice. I also like Rewind. um I really like the flow of that map. How you can really ascertain, based on listening. You can really ascertain like um where the enemy team is kind of focusing the fight, and that's one where it tends to, I mean, the maps that I like are maps where teams just kind of naturally gravitate to having like limited intense firefights in around like one area of the map, and like the conflict like exists there, and then based on spawn rotation it'll kind of shift and move somewhere around the map. So that seems to tend to happen on Rewind.
Yeah, I noticed a lot with early on with that one was that would happen mainly in the inside of the I don't know if it's like a video store or whatever that store is, kind of in the middle, that main store,
Is it
or some kind of
on
shop
the
or something.
on the middle of the shopping strip or the standalone?
The middle of the shopping strip. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I haven't noticed it there. I tend to notice it in what I think is like a fast food restaurant or something
yeah.
that's
It's
a
like a restaurant. Yeah,
standalone.
now I notice it more on the restaurant than even in the middle section. But and if you haven't noticed, you can get on top of where the roof of where the drive-through is. Just if you don't know,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, which I didn't know for like the longest time. Then I saw the glint of a sniper. I'm like, wait, how did he get up there? And then I was like, oh yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I have fun with that one. I think, and then the one I'm trying to remember which is the one that is. It's a Middle Eastern map, I believe. Um, that Vault. Wait, is Vault on this list? Vault's not on this list. Yeah. So that is one that I like. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say is this seems to be the season that has the most maps at launch. I mean, to the point where I'm just really amazed. Like I said, I mean, we've come across two that even aren't in this list that I pulled from, like, and I cross reference like two websites, right? So despite two websites, like, we're still finding shortfalls. But yeah, Vault is that one where um it's like there's a pool and then there's like a blown out wall in the pool, and you go through that and you're in like a vault area, and the rest of it is kind of like this Middle Eastern map of large buildings with like two floors, right? Where a lot of people get up in the balconies. There's a huge sight line down one side of the map where you could see down the entire side of the map, and you could see people either coming towards you or flowing out of that building in the middle. So I think those are some of my favorites. Which of these are your least favorites, or do you think are kind of problematic, and or like that Mexican border crossing one? You're like, I just like they should just pull that out of the rotation and like throw it away.
Yeah, right before I go into that one though, I'm surprised about Scud because I played Scud a lot, especially at the beginning when I first started playing. I'm kind of surprised you just saw that now. Well, I mean, you've only had what a couple weeks now, I think, or 3 weeks that you've been playing. But it's kind of weird that they used to come up quite a lot. I don't see it too much anymore. But yeah, that's another kind of favorite of mine, along with the Vault. Another one you don't have on here is Subsonic, which has that like stealth. I don't know, it's like a fighter or bomber or whatever in the middle of the map, and it's like a big hangar basically with the stealth fighter in the middle of it. I don't know if you've seen that one yet.
I think I've seen that one like once or twice.
Yeah. So yeah, that's another kind of a smaller one. And then as far as ones that I not super thrilled with. So Nuketown used to be that one until the new favorite of mine that I don't like to play came out is Babylon, which is once again is that Middle Eastern kind of a smaller map. It's kind of like ruins of like a. It looks like it's a ruins of some like ancient building or something.
Yeah,
Right in the middle.
I call that the yeah. It looks like it's like yeah, it's like ruins of like ancient like an excavation, like an excavated like archaeological site
Yeah.
um or whatever. But yeah, I call that the parkour map
Yeah.
because there's tons of places that you're just constantly mantling and mantling and mantling, and then there's on like edges of the map. There's even some ones where like the only I think the only way you get through those tunnels is to slide and crouch to
Yeah.
go through,
That
and then
one.
you pop up in some rooms. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that one corner. Yeah, where you can kind of snipe and do whatever. But yeah, that one, I don't mind it so much. Just if it's like just a straight deathmatch or team deathmatch. But anything else like this, I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago. Was the spawns are horrible in that map? Like if you're playing anything like domination or hardpoint or anything like that, even HVT a little bit, but mostly in those kind of domination hardpoint type of maps, the King of the Hill, whatever you want to call it. People are just spawning like in every direction. This is on a team map, so or in a team mode. So I was ridiculous on that one. And then the other one, the only other really one that I was like, was Hacienda, which is a newer one, I believe, just came out. I think this season maybe, or this month. Um, I can't wrap my head around that map. Like, there's too many ways that people come at you on that one, which is kind of weird because I mean, it's kind of like that with all maps, really. But for this one, just seems like there's just too many ways for people to come up and just shoot you behind because that's like 99% of the time I'm getting shot is from behind because somebody's just coming up from behind me and shooting me. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Really, it's just those two. Like I've softened on Nuketown now. I don't mind it so much when it comes out. Um, yeah, just looking at the list right here. Yeah, that's pretty much Payback. I didn't really like at first, which is that it's just like I think in the single player mode, that's kind of like your base of operations. It's like a big house. Um, with like a small little, I don't know what kind of little, there's like another little guard house or something in front of it. And then in the back, there's like a shed or whatever, like a garage. That one was like, I was kind of on at first, but that one I'm starting to warm up to now. I don't mind it so much anymore. Anything that pops up to you?
Yeah, I mean, I was right there, right there. Payback, like the first couple times I played Payback, I was like, this needs to go because people were cheesing it so badly with the camping, and I mean, I just went up against some teams where like literally teams like didn't move, they just like trenched in, in certain little corners of the map, and like it was just ridiculous. But yeah, I've that map, a lot of exploiting that map is can really depend on what gear you take. Taking the right kind of field upgrades and score streaks, like and tactical and lethal equipment can make like a huge like you know people will cheese that one until you start putting blast traps around on places, and that tends to alter people's behavior. um but yeah, I mean, I think the one the one that really sticks out at me that I don't feel like it's bad and like trash and like needs to go and like never be seen again is Lowtown. Um just that one is one where like I just like you mentioned about like Hacienda, I think. Like I just don't get into it like any kind of flow on that map. Like there's just no like a lot of maps what I do is I run because I don't get on comms with people, and so I'm constantly playing with randos. A lot of maps for me, I'm either one of two things. I I it's all based on sound and audio, like, and I head in the direction right of kills. When I see a teammate get taken out, I'm like, okay, so there's a bad guy over there, so let me go in that direction. But a lot of maps, it's oriented around me running patrols. And there are routes that I run. Um, and that is one that I just like I don't have that or get that. Like there's no it just feels like there's no effective means of really patrolling right that map. And maybe that's just because I just don't get it and I haven't, like I said, I've stopped looking at spawn points and things like that. Um, but yeah, that was just a weird one. That I just just don't really get into. Um, but
Yeah,
I
that
mean
one.
that yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, that one is a little weird because kind of like Hacienda. There's a lot of secrets in that one. Like you can actually go underwater and come up on underneath one of the buildings, and there's another entrance in one other side of the building, that same building, but on the other side where you might not notice it because you kind of go over water and you might not see it. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of hidden spots in that one.
Yeah, Enate mentions they need to bring back mercenary TDM so that a solo guys can stop facing teams. Yeah, Enate, I've just I just have just accepted it. Like, look, there are some nights that like if you're a person who doesn't get on like public comms, you're gonna go into some matches and you're gonna be up against squads that are on a full squad, right? And those guys are on comms, and like there's just nothing you can do. You know? Um, but I mean, my two hallmarks. So where I am on the map set, is comment one. Like I said, I feel like I don't know that that a Call of Duty has ever gone to the field with as many maps in the rotation off of launch in season one. And in fact, for season one, as far as I can tell, I think they only added, at least at the beginning of season one, they only added 3 maps. And they've maybe done, Treyarch has done probably more so than the other studios has done map insertions like midway through a season. And in the last few years, it has definitely become the norm now that there's a season one first half, and then there's a season one like rebooted. Um, so they probably stuck a few more maps than that. But like comment one is good job on never having seen as many. My second comment would be I don't know that there's like I'm very lukewarm and tepid on um what was the map on Lowtown, but there's no maps in here like the Mexican border map or like the museum map was Modern Warfare 2 when there was this huge inflection point in how they did maps and suddenly maps just got like ridiculously large and I get it, there was a reason why, because they put more battle rifles and marksman rifles in the game than had ever been there before. And those are really viable weapons, and that was the year they went to the whole weapons platform thing. And so I eventually I think the community came to understand it, but we didn't get it at first, and museum was just felt like a horrendous map. Like I don't feel like there are any horrendous maps in here that I would just say, you know, whoever developed this, like fire that person, like and make them do the walk of shame or whatever. Um, Despite those being the comments, what I will also say, because I was thinking about the question about like, hey, Tao, is this like the best, in pre-show when I was kind of prepping, and I was like, where I am today is I don't know that I am ready to heap accolades on Call of Duty being the best at anything. Right, in this like after 20 something years of this, like they're already the biggest game, they've already have the biggest development team, they already make the most money, they already get the most players. Like I think they get enough. Right, I don't think I'm ever gonna give them the accolade to say, hey, this is great, this is good enough, like best Call of Duty ever. Like because I the burden that comes, the baggage that comes with it is they always need to keep pushing, right, and figuring new things out, and I'm glad that they do. But like I just don't, I think Call of Duty is like so long in the tooth now that it's, and yes, it's a game that I play a great deal. I don't know that I'm ever gonna say this is the best, right, you guys have ever done, because what I expect, I still expect them to figure out the next best thing, right, for them to do to push the envelope on the following year. Like so I don't know. The big question I needed to ask you is, so I prestige for the first time this week. Um, and you mentioned, how many, roughly how many, weeks do I have kind of in the saddle now? I'm about at the 1 month point. I think I picked up BLOPS6 like well, maybe I don't. Maybe it is about 3 weeks. I think I picked it up like at the beginning of the holiday break, right? So kind of mid-December-ish. Um, I prestige for the first time this week. I did not know exactly what option I was taking when it asked me the question. Um, in retrospect, I would have still prestiged. I'm not clear if you don't prestige, or are people just under the old system where they just retain their unlocks forever and they continue getting ranks up to 328 or whatever, or like
Yeah, if you don't prestige, you'll just keep everything. And I don't I'm assuming your level just keeps going up. I'm not really sure because I just prestiged right away as soon as I got it. So, but I know you would keep everything if you don't go into the menu and change it or whatever. So
they,
or
they keep
set it.
all they keep all their unlocks. What I haven't seen yet at this point is like the crazy level numbers, right? That you would typically see every in past years where just or prestige one was just levels 51 through 99, right? And then prestige two was level 100 through 149, right? Or whatever. So I don't see those numbers going up. So I don't understand if you don't prestige, if you're just capped at 4-star general level 55, but yet you keep all your unlocks,
Yeah.
and you could still keep earning unlocks, I assume. um
So the level actually resets when you do prestige, so you won't see those higher numbers until someone reaches that. I think it was what, the 10th. It's 10 prestiges or whatever, how you want to say it. So I think after that, then you'll start seeing like those crazy 100 and 200, level number level numbers. So, but yeah, I don't know if you don't prestige at all, like if your level keeps going up or not. I'm not too sure about that myself either.
yeah, I don't know. I almost it almost makes me want to create like a second like account,
Just to
to
see.
see what happens, but I'll probably just Google it. um but I prestiged, and like I said, I didn't understand exactly, what they, because I was playing. I didn't really, super pay attention to like all like the warnings, and like, I was like, I don't have time to read all that. And then of course I was like super disappointed when I hit yes, and then like lost access to all my stuff. I was like, what? Like, what is going on? And there was a brief moment where I was in a bathtub where I was like struggling like mentally, right, to get my head wrapped around like what are they doing, and feeling momentarily like this is the worst thing ever. Like, why would they do this? Like, this is so like this is like a Counter-Strike thing, or like an Escape from Tarkov thing. Like, this is this brutal, punishing, draconian, thing of like, you know, going back to the old days of like trying to create like these second class citizens, right? Amongst like the community, like back when they didn't give everybody access to the maps and you had to buy the maps or whatever. um but that lasted a pretty short time, and now I'm just kind of like, one of the things that took me out of that nosedive was playing the first few matches and realizing that, okay, well, when you prestige, your level promotions, like, I don't know what they're doing. They're like, they seem to be on like double or triple XP, but like, I've I've played some matches. It seems much more responsive to how well you do in a match. I've played some matches and done really well, and I've popped like 3 prestige levels like off a single match.
Yeah, I think you get a boost every time you prestige too, because I remember seeing the little. I think it has it in the corner. I don't know if it shows it all the time, but maybe in the prestige menu area, it does say you get like an XP boost for prestiging. So yeah, because yeah. I mean, plus, I mean, you kind of at that point you obviously you know how to play the game, so you're gonna start leveling up pretty quickly too, just because you're doing good, even with like the kind of suppressed weapons, because obviously you don't have everything, you don't have all the attachments and all that. But and then kind of like always, you can always unlock something, forever with after you prestige, after a certain, I don't know what level you're at now after prestiging, but after a certain level, you can say, hey, I want this attachment or this perk or whatever unlocked forever. So that's kind of nice too, which I think they've always done, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because the prestige systems in the modern era that I've played under, they've never done this where like they've locked, you prestige and then you relock everything. Like in the past, and like since the Modern Warfare reboot, like prestiging hasn't been an option. Like they don't ask you, they just tell you, you just promote, right? So this is new to me, um, but it's also fine. And yeah, I've now had the experience of like, oh, okay, you've earned this tarot card or whatever, this infinity card, and you can go in and manually select like which thing do you want to always be unlocked. You can pick a weapon or an attachment or a perk or whatever. So it's neat. Um, and I'm sure it's going to get better over time. I think one of the reasons why I was able to get around to it sitting okay with me is because, if you recall, I said at the end of season at the end of the last season of Modern Warfare 3, I had just gotten to the point where a lot of the grind, investment, reward, like ROI kind of things that I had like really gotten into over the 5 years just became very less important to me. I was like, I'd gotten to the point where I was getting gold wraps and all this stuff, and I'm like, I think I've done enough of this, right? I'm okay. Like I don't know that I care that much about, like, they had given us so many camos. Although, like I said, my comment is the camos are really stingy, but like they'd given us so many camos that I'm like, I don't know that I'm wrapped around the axle about always wearing my gold wrap. I'll play with some of these other camos, but then I also got to the point where, like, I don't know that I really care about camos, and I don't need to switch them like every couple rounds or whatever. So, the effect that prestige is having me is because it limits what's available to you. Like, I don't. When I first started playing this year, what I said was, okay, so I'm just gonna arm the XM4. That's the only weapons loadout I'm gonna make, and I'm gonna grind the XM4 until I max level it, and I'm not gonna play with any other weapon. And then I did the same thing for the AK, and then I did the same thing for the aims, and then I did that for the whatever, the G whatever. So, but then when it took them all away, I was like, well, I don't know that I care about max leveling the weapon like anymore as like a priority. So, I'm slowly making some more weapons packages, but I'm just like, I'm just gonna play the game, and when these things happen, they happen. But like that's no longer become like the primary focus. Um, so I think in that aspect, it's kind of okay, because it is instantiated that behavioral change. Um, and that goes hand in hand with also the maps. So 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 for Modern Warfare 2, from the big inflection point to like the super long range maps, they've gotten, in Modern Warfare 3, they got back to like drawing those in. And now in Black Ops 6, we're now at this next stage where they've really drawn them back in because they brought the face off maps back, and they've really made like super small maps, right? So you no longer have these maps where it's like the distances are so great that unless you have some mega scope on a weapon, you can't even engage people like the first time. Most of the maps, you're able to engage enemies at a reasonable range, even if you have some dinky scope right on your weapon. So again, I don't feel like I don't feel like them yanking everything away from you for prestige is that punishing. So it's actually kind of fun in a certain kind of way. I don't know. What's your overall feeling on it?
Yeah, I know at least in the Black Ops series up till Cold War, because I don't think I even prestige once in Cold War. I don't think, or maybe I did once, but I know in the previous iterations they would wipe you like after each prestige. Because I remember in the original Black Ops and the second one, I prestige at least I think a couple times on each of those, and like each time I was like, yeah, you're just gonna start over. So I can't remember. I don't think I prestige at all on Cold War, even though I really like that game. I think I just fell off and started playing something else. But I think I was kind of the opposite of you because I was always concentrating on the guns as far as I want to play each class of gun. Like I got all these guns. I don't want to just focus on one thing, and do this and do that. So just focus on one gun to get this camo and stuff. I like it when I get camos. So I will go in there and I am that guy that goes in there and changes every few rounds. I'll change everything. I'll change the ammo. I'll change the camo. I'll change like the little you know like keychain looking thing that you can get and all the stickers and sprays and stuff. Um, I was concentrating more on that, and I think it was more fun for me that way, just because like, well, I got all these guns, like I want to try all these guns, and even like the snipers, like in previous games, whether it was Black Ops or whatever series it was, like I never really did all that well in snipers, but now on this game, I'm actually fairly decent with the sniper, and finally in Call of Duty, like before it was, it's just and the other thing too with snipers is like this thing is it moves so fast usually, like you don't really have time to snipe people unless you're doing the quick scoping thing, which I still don't understand why they have that in the game, but which I don't really, I just haven't seen that as much. I think in this iteration, I'm pretty sure it's still there, but I'm finally it's one thing I'm finally able to do in like the marksman rifles. I've been using kind of more of those, and kind of going through and kind of just like using each one of them and stuff like that. So I might get like half of the attachments unlocked, and then I'll switch the weapon, to the next the next one down, whatever I had unlocked. So on each class, so I have like multiple classes. Obviously, I have multiple loadouts, but I have each one is each different class. So, and I think I made like I'm actually considering making maybe one class once I kind of like I'm able to play most of the or all of the guns, and I'll just start concentrating on doing the challenges and stuff, and I'll just make a certain class for that, just so I can I'll change that class however the challenges are and stuff, so I can get more experience. But yeah, it's been interesting trying to getting back into it after being gone from Call of Duty for what 3 games now, I think, or 4. I think Vanguard was in there too, right, at some point. So I didn't play Vanguard either. Besides the
Yeah,
the reboots.
we try to not talk about Vanguard.
Just forget about that. And all 3 of the reboots of Modern Warfare. So I haven't played any of those until 3, and that was just like a little bit of the multiplayer. So it's been fun getting back into it after playing all these other. I was playing, well, I guess, Warzone kind of on and off the last couple of years, so I was kind of in it, but not really, because that's a whole different beast into itself. So yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah, the last bit I'll say about just kind of my overall feelings on season 1, and and just the title in general is definitely having fun with it. I don't know if I'm having like as much fun as in previous years. Um, I don't feel like I don't feel this year, like the last few years. I felt like I was always trying to figure something out, right? Just in terms of like the maps or the weapons platforms, or doing, as you mentioned, doing the daily challenges, and I don't do I don't do anything any of that stuff anymore. Like I also don't feel like any of that stuff is like shrouded in mystery, right? It's just whereas before I felt like there were there were deep changes, right, that caused kind of these weird inflection points that like you would have to come to understand, right, by spending time doing those things. And so either between lack of interest or just like I don't feel like any of those things are like veiled, like wrapped in a shroud of mystery anymore either. Um but so from that perspective, I don't know that there's as much like fun, like in that deep curiosity, right, in certain components of those systems. Um, but from a consistency perspective, I think like the game like is kind of at a high watermark. And so that's been good. The one thing that I have that kind of leaves a bit of a bad taste in my mouth is, we mentioned it last week, right? Now there's 6 tick marks, right, per level in the battle pass, like as opposed to 5, that there've been over the past few years. Um, the the thing that I don't like about that is like when I first came to the game, I felt like, oh well, I've seen comments here and there on Twitter about like some of these are coming from like tryhards and movement kiddies and like super salty people, and they're like, oh, I get through the battle pass too fast. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, because you sit on it and you play 8 hours a day. I don't think that's like the normal. Um, and so I was like, okay, so they've added these things to address those people, right? To keep people who were complaining about like not enough content in the battle pass. But then I also look at, you know, the move to put it in Game Pass, and I'm like, did and the fact that you can't see like what platforms other people are on, like you can only see the platforms like you're on, or people who are in your party are on. Everything else is just kind of obfuscated and generalized. And I'm like, there's a part of me that's like, huh. So so the impact of this is that in general, a lot of people are probably incentivized to play longer, to play put in those extra like 2 or 3 matches, right? To, unlock a battle pass token, which seems to be incredibly stingy in the progression pace with it, and some other things. And I'm like, I I I strongly wonder whether or not there's some contrivance there in, trying to bump up those engagement hours and numbers for a game that's in Game Pass, and to be able to tout that as a metric at earnings calls. But other than that, that's the only thing that feels. I mean, look, at the end of the day, Call of Duty is kind of a swarmy business. No matter what, just get over it. Um, but that's like the one thing that kind of, is, hanging in the back of my mind as far as like, is this an egregiousness, step too far, in comparison to past behavior. But other than that, it's it's fine. I don't know, any other major takeaways from Utah.
No, I was just gonna say it was kind of funny last week when you were talking about the how you can't tell like who's on what unless you're in parties and stuff like that. I was playing with some people from a Discord server that I'm on, and at first time we had been, I think I might have played with the one guy on like Fortnite or something at one point or some other game, but we were playing. We had a group of four. And we started a map and we're playing and whatever. And then the one was like, "Oh, what are you guys playing on?" Because all I see is like a little. Well, she said like a mobile sign, but I think it was just like a TV with like a little. It almost looked like a little, either like a mini PC or like a streaming device or something next to it. I was like, "Yeah, I don't. I see the same thing for the three of you guys, but I am on PC and there's like a couple other people that were on PC and the one person was on PS4. Is like everybody saw something different, which was kind of weird. So I just thought that was kind of funny when you had just brought that up, like literally like a couple days before. So, but otherwise, yeah, I mean, like you said, I'm just having like I was, I'm having a good time with that. And I don't know if you noticed too after you prestige, like I think it's every 10th level, you unlock something. Like it could be an attachment, it could be like a new perk, or it could be something like that. So that's just another thing to kind of look out for. Some of that stuff is zombie related too, which I thought was kind of weird because you're playing multiplayer, it should all be multiplayer stuff, but they throw stuff in there, I guess now. So it is what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a love hate relationship, right, with the prestige system. Just, I like the fact that there's the booster in there, right, and the progression seems faster. But then I also get really bothered when like, you know, oh wow, prestige 10, in your tier, loading screen. And I'm like, come on, man. So, but there seems to be enough other stuff kind of falling, out of the sky. So I figure, over time I'll probably become inoculated and numb to it, and it'll just be, the way we think it is, for that. All right, so let's yeah, anything else, Tom?
I was just gonna say, I don't know if you noticed, but they seem to be pretty generous, giving you like extra or free, even like in the store, the double XP either for just your level or weapons. So I just noticed that this past week. I was like, wow, I got a lot of these. Like I was looking at them, I was like, I got a lot of these, like double whatever, in my inventory.
So I think what's going on, and this is right, this is the weird, right? Like last week I talked about, what's broken, what's weird, right? And this is, I think this is the thing that's a weird. I think what's going on, and so this will be interesting. So I've played every day. So what'll be interesting is when I break the streak. What I think is going on is I think they're giving you a free double XP token that is really a daily bonus. Like there are, like, like in a lot of the live service games we play, right? There's tons of these games that, like, as long as you keep checking in like each day, right? And some of the times, some of these games, it drives the behavior of, like you don't even play, but you just check in, right, to claim your daily reward. I think that's what's going on because that free thing in the store has popped way more frequently than it has in the past. And over the last few days, at least, it's always a double XP token. So I think that's what's happening. But then the weird of it is, but they're not saying it. They're not being overt about it. And so it's so that what feels kind of icky about that is I'm like, okay, so this is a drug dealer, right? You know, they're they're giving you this one pill of X like every day that you come to the club, right? Right. And eventually, like you're gonna be hooked, right? So you're gonna keep coming every day. And I think that's what's going on, but they're not being overt about it. And I'm like, why don't you just tell people like there's now a daily check-in bonus of a double XP token for every time you play consecutively. But yeah, we'll see. We should be able to hopefully report on that like next week after, you know. Um, but let's go ahead and get to the news. Huge amount of things to go through. Seven news stories, many of them in multiple parts in the rundown tonight. So on to segment two, main news headlines. This news story, first news story in the rundown. This news story over on GameDeveloper.com by Justin Carter. Astrobot and Helldivers 2 headline the 2025 DICE Awards nominations. The Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences, AIAS, has revealed its nominees for the upcoming 28th Annual DICE Awards. Candidates for the ceremony's best games of 2024 include Team Asobi's Astrobot, Arrowhead's Helldivers 2, Local Funk's Balatro, Game Science's Black Myth Wukong, and Machine Games' Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Astro, Helldivers, and Jones have 6 nominations each in categories such as nomination, art direction, and technical achievement. Beyond those 3 titles, Balatro and Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2 each picked up 5 nominations apiece. And in total, AIAS says 60 games from 2024 were nominated across its various categories. So I ran through Game of the Year, achievements in game direction, 1,000 Times Resist, Animal Well, Lorelei, and the Laser Eyes, Riven, and Thank Goodness You're Here. Outstanding achievement in game design, Animal Well, Astrobot, Balatro, Helldivers 2, UFO 50. So you have a number of games in that bucket that are not big AAA titles, first party from console manufacturers, etc. Online game of the year for the DICE Awards is BLOPS6, Diablo 4, Helldivers 2, Marvel Rivals, Warhammer 40,000. Almost made a big error there. I'm not the most up to speed on Warhammer lore, but my understanding is there's certain people who get very wrapped around the axle about Warhammer 40,000 versus Warhammer 40K. Not my area of expertise, but it's hard to imagine Helldivers 2 not walking away with that one. Trying to see if there are any other big categories here. They didn't nothing here that really jumps out at me, but any major surprises there and kind of, and I haven't gone to look at the entire list of DICE Awards nominees. Anything there that jumps out at you, Tal, from the set?
It's nice to see Indiana Jones and Marvel Rivals just because they came December last year, so they weren't. I'm assuming DICE just waits until the whole year's over before they, go through with all this. So that's kind of nice to have those in there. Yeah, but I mean, Game there is kind of similar to most other outlets. Maybe Indiana Jones was even Indiana Jones. I think it was some of the outlets out there. Yeah, I mean, I think DICE kind of like, even if you're looking at the level design and game direction, they kind of go with a good mix of triple and indie stuff. They don't just kind of keep to the big stuff, even though I guess this past year was a little bit different too, as some of the other sites were kind of or some of the sites, I should say other sites, we're all kind of mix it up too. But it's nice to see that they kind of mix it up in all the categories. I was looking at the categories right now. Yeah, everything seems to be about right. They have the VR section at the very bottom here. Alien Rogue Incursion, Batman Arkham Shadows, Behemoth from Skydance, who did the Walking Dead. Oh, I forgot the title of that one, but the bigger Walking Dead VR title. Starship Home and Underdogs, Underdogs was like a mech kind of battler, so that's kind of cool to see all those games in there. So yeah, it's a good mix of everything.
Friend of the show, Ramon Terrell, coming through the chat. So we appreciate you, Ramon. Star of Homeworld 3, one of last year's releases. also frequent appearances on some of our favorite shows, such as Arrow and other well-known shows. So thanks so much, Ramon, for coming through. Cal, you want to go on to story number 2?
Yeah, so we have some video game Steam Deck news for Civilization 7 has been verified ahead of its launch next month, February 11th, I believe. Should I look at the article real quick? Yeah, February 11th. Previous iterations 5 and 6 were playable, but they had the caveat of not having some hangups, mostly in the text region, which kind of happens with a lot of games, I think, on the Steam Deck. I know sometimes I have trouble with even No Man's Sky on there. The text is a little small, so hopefully that means they have more options for like text size. I'm assuming because that is, if I remember correctly, pretty text heavy. The Civ series. And then they have some minimum and recommended specs here just for kind of just PC. So obviously you got Windows 64. I'm sorry, Windows 10 64-bit for both. You got processor wise for minimum. You got Intel i5 4690, excuse me, and AMD Ryzen 3 1200, 8 gigs of memory. Graphics card, NVIDIA GTX 1050 or AMD 460, and they have Intel also in here, Intel Arc A380, Direct 12, obviously, and then at least 20 gigs of storage is on both. Main difference here for recommended for processor, you got Intel Core i5 10400 and AMD Ryzen 5 3600X. 16 gigs of memory. So not, I mean, even the recommended is really not too bad. Graphics card RTX 2060 with the AMD RX 6600 and Intel Arc A750. So, like I said, I don't think it's too bad, even for recommended. You should be able to run it on most systems. But yeah, so pretty cool that it's already verified. I think you see that a lot more. I think nowadays too, where you get that Steam verified kind of moniker like right away, even before the game comes out. So anything you saw maybe kind of out of place or anything any comments on this one?
No, I mean it'll be curious. This is normally not the kind of game that I would play on Steam Deck. On the show we talked about me playing Civilization 6 on the Nintendo Switch. You mentioned the thing about text, right? And what tends to happen with Civilization is in the early goings and like your first scenarios, yes, super text heavy because they're presenting tutorials about anything and everything, and you don't know all the systems that have changed. That becomes less impactful as time goes on and you become more familiar with the game. Um, on Nintendo Switch, I actually had to stop playing on Nintendo Switch and like go because I hadn't played the desktop version in so long, and go back and like relearn the game on desktop, and then I was able to play on Nintendo Switch because there were so many things on Switch that like aren't explained to you, it seems like. So not my norm, but I I was I've been surprised by how well certain things play on the Steam Deck that normally I would say, no, I'm not. That's just not a game I'm going to play in portable fashion. I was very surprised by Midnight Suns and some other things. I may keep my eye on this and play it on Steam Deck or give it a whirl and just see how it goes. Of course, uh, well, we'll talk about CES later on. So you want to go on to story number 3?
Yes. So we had an announcement for Microsoft or Xbox's Developer Direct coming back on January 23rd. So this is where each developer of the games here, I'll talk about in a second, kind of goes a little bit of I guess, deeper dive or kind of in depth of how the development of these games are going. So we'll see Doom: The Dark Ages from id Software, which kind of has the origins of the Doomslayer. South of Midnight from Compulsion Games, creators of Contrast and We Happy Few. They'll go through that one. Was kind of southern Louisiana kind of background on that one. The one thing I remember about that game was when they actually did finally show some gameplay. I think it was from last I was gonna say E3, but not E3, but Summer Games Fest and all that. Our Xbox Direct was kind of, the animation was a little weird, I guess you want to say. Like it had that kind of like weird framey kind of movement.
If I recall correctly, I believe that's intentional. So
Yeah.
there like her like the game, I think the game, and don't quote me on this because I mean I'm interested in this game from the creativity perspective. Not I haven't been super focused around like the performance aspect of it because I feel like this is a game that I'm not like I think it'll be fine with whatever. I don't think it's going to be a 30 frame per second game on PC, so I think it'll be fun. But if I remember correctly, her character like isolated like moves. I think at 30 frames per second. In a world that is a 60 frame per second world, so it's kind of like a if you think about the Miles Morales Spider Verse. Oh, that's right. You don't have a place. So the Miles Morales animation within um not Miles. When Miles Morales wears the Spider Verse costume in the Spider Man games, it's the same kind of effect. So it's deliberately done. Um, so it wasn't so much like a performance knit right with the demonstration, but that's actually the stylistic animation implementation in the game.
Yeah, and Ramon mentions that was intentional. The cutscenes are stop motion, but you can toggle that on and off. Yeah, and I was going to mention that. Yeah, that when they actually showed gameplay, it ran normally or normally, as I'll say. But yeah, yeah, that man, that Spider Verse movie, man, it was hard watching that movie because just because of the animation, it's just kind of freaking me out. But anyways, and then the third game, Claire Obscure Expedition 33 from Sandfall Interactive. You'll go behind the scenes on that game, and then they don't mention it here, but there was a fourth game or something that they're going to present, but they just had kind of a question mark on it, so we don't know what that's going to be. So you'll have at least four things that they'll show off, whether it's game or hardware. What they haven't said, but and that's going to happen January 23rd. Excuse me, January 23rd, 10 Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. So tune in for that. So that's always kind of interesting because you kind of see the developers talking and kind of get their kind of behind the scenes kind of look at stuff. So it's kind of cool.
So that's weird. That's a Thursday, isn't it?
Yep, Thursday, January 23rd. Yep,
At 1 p.m. in the afternoon.
Yep, 1 Eastern, 12 Central for me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's yeah. I guess people will have to make arrangements around work to watch it. I'm surprised that it's not later in the day, to right for people to, even if they knock off a little early. Yeah, that's weird. At any rate, obviously we're probably going to get a big Black BLOPS6 season 2 footage and reveal than I would expect with because season 2 starts 5 days later. While it's not a new game and so maybe doesn't fit the terms and definitions that they've wrapped around like the mystery game that they're going to reveal. I do have high hopes that we hopefully get to see more of Clockwork Revolution at this game from gosh, Brap just reminded me of the studio who's doing that game who they were the studio who did Compulsion games. Wait, no, Compulsion's doing Bijou Bayou. I can't remember the name of the studio, but a lot of the developers came out of the studio that did Arcanum of Magic Obscura, which is one of my favorite early 2000s PC games. That is like a steampunk game of this world that where there's both magic and tech. And those are the people working on Clockwork Revolution, which obviously looks a lot of people have commented about how it looks a lot like the world of BioShock. So we'll see how that goes. I'm looking forward to whatever's coming up, but looking forward to all those games that were listed publicly in the rundown, as well as whatever mystery game gets revealed. I think where I've kind of settled in with Xbox is I've, I've really kind of grown over the last few months of like talking about the business stuff and whatever, like trying to get my heart, figure out where my mind and my heart are with Xbox as a brand. And I've just come to the point where I'm loving the creativity of the games to be released that are upcoming. I'm hoping that the games that have been released so far in this generation, that Indiana Jones marks a new foot forward on what the studios are doing, and in that some of the performance problems of the past, and the ways those have been kind of discussed and obfuscated or kind of over, but I'm also separating right what the studios are doing from what corporate is doing, because I think I've come to the realization that like every negative feeling I have about Xbox this generation is all from the GLT and Bond and Spencer and Booty, and that hopefully the studios will be able to stride forward now and separate themselves from all of that wackadoodle mess. So I'm super looking forward to the developer direct here in a couple weeks. You ready to move on to your next news story, Hal?
Yeah, and then for Clockwork Revolution, that's In Exile Entertainment was a developer,
Ah, that's right.
or
That's
is a
right.
developer. I
Yep.
should say. Yeah. And I was trying to remember that Claire Obscura Expedition 33. That's the one where it's like, I guess there's been like the previous expeditions or whatever, and I guess it kind of resets the world or something. Like each time was kind of the story beat of that one.
It's kind of a very it's kind of like a Hunger Games kind of thing intermixed with magic. Like the whole shtick is like every, if I remember correctly, the way it goes is like every year, like an age group is like vanished or something like that, or like or like their lives are taken. Um so then like the remainder of the world is like the whatever generations are coming like behind them.
Yeah.
It is a small, relatively small studio out of France, I believe, that's doing the game. It is based on I think a previous like a set of books or whatever. I think. But the major thing is that like the combat is turn based, but it has kind of dynamics similar to like Final Fantasy Active Time Battle, where it's turn based, but then you have points in a turn where you can perform like some intervention actions and like change the tide or the direction of what's going on in the middle of the turn if you choose to expend your movement points or energy or whatever it is for those actions. So it looks so it's I'm super interested in like the premise and the plot and the story. It sounds very interesting and like very much like kind of in my wheelhouse. And then it's an RPG with this not completely innovative, but like this interesting like tilt in how it's addressing combat. So I'm very interested in seeing how it turns out.
Nice. Yeah, yeah, that one was. I remember seeing that one. It was looked pretty cool. Although, yeah, turn based, I'm usually kind of turned off of. But yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll give it a chance, as I like to pick a game every so often and give it a go on turn based type actions. But let's jump into the next news story. So we're going to jump into some CES stuff. And this first article I got from EGN. Mostly, I just want to kind of go over the gaming stuff. Obviously, it's a game podcast. And first couple points I'll skip over because I guess Game Logic will talk about that here in a second. First one though is Lenovo Legion Go S. So we got an AMD Ryzen Z2 chip in that bad boy, along with an 8-inch 1200p display. And then kind of the biggest thing, I guess, with this one is this is the first official handheld that's going to have the Steam OS in it, other than obviously the Steam Deck. So that'll be $499 when it comes out, sometime in May. So 500. And then along they'll also have the another iteration with Windows 11, which has the AMD Ryzen Z1 Extreme chip in it, and that one's going to go for $729. So we'll see those two in May, and that the latter one will be later in the month. So those ones are coming out, and then the next handheld I just want to bring up, the Acer Nitro Blaze 11.
We apply the label handheld very lightly.
Yeah, which has AMD Ryzen 7 8840HS laptop chip, along with 16 gigs of RAM and two terabytes of storage. But it has a ginormous 11-inch 2560 by 1600 120 hertz IPS display. So they should have a picture here of this guy holding it, and it is massive. It looks like an iPad with just two handle controllers on either side of it. It's just huge. So I was bringing that up because it's just kind of funny how giant it is. That's coming out Q2 of this year, starting at $1,100 or $1,200, basically $1,199. And then we have kind of a kind of a goofy one, but it's the Ranger Project Ariel, a gaming chair that actually warms and cools you. So it has kind of fanless blade or fanless kind of cooling and heating system. And this is just a concept, so we don't know if this will actually ever come out. and of course, it has RGB light strips all around it, so you get to light up your chair. So that's kind of cool, I guess. Um, Kind of skipping down here. There's a couple displays. I'm not going to go through those real quick at all. There's like a was trying to find. I was gonna look for some information actually on the LG. What is it? The LG M5, which has, I guess, it's cable free, but trying to figure out like, is it a display with like an extra box that projects the image on it, or I got to look that up a little bit more. I wanted to kind of look at that. So it was just kind of weird how it said it's true, and I'm putting air quotes up there, true wireless system. So I'll skip that for now. But then we have some entertainment news. We have Sony was announced some actually live action and animated shows that they're going to have. So they're going to have a Helldivers 2 and Horizon Zero Dawn shows that'll be coming out, along with an anime based on Ghost of Tsushima. So those are coming out sometime, not until, well, the anime is 2027, they say. They didn't mention when those other 2 shows will come out. So that should be pretty interesting, because I think, Helldivers 2, that, if you've ever played it, it's heavily inspired, and I think even the devs have said it's heavily inspired on Starship Troopers. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of, mix that all into another, show or movie. I'm sorry, these are actually movies, the Helldivers and Horizon. Sorry about that. And then Horizon Zero Dawn actually I think would be pretty cool just visually, because obviously you have these giant robot dinosaurs, and it's kind of this lush forest and tropical regions that you kind of see in the game. So I think that'd be a pretty cool movie too, if they can pull that out correctly. So and then finally at the end of the article, they got the Nintendo Switch 2, which is obviously we will talk about actually in a little bit here, but there's some mock-ups of that on the show floor, just because of third-party vendors that had different accessories and stuff that they're working on. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, though. Anything that jumped out at you, I guess, Game Logic?
The most interesting thing was the Acer Blaze 11. I actually wasn't going to make many comments about anything kind of in the CES rundown, but that's Acer does this thing where every once in a while, like it hits certain product areas that are niche and offers them at a much better price point, or with just capabilities that other vendors aren't providing, in a way that's differentiated, that makes them really attractive. They do the Acer Nitro series of gaming laptops, where you know they're not spec'd as high as some other laptops, but they will include things like an extra bay for an extra 2.5-inch SSD, or an extra NVMe slot. And so I had one a few years ago. Several years ago. Before I got rid of them and supplanted like that um, that space kind of in my ecosystem with handhelds with the Steam Deck. But I had one and bought it at a really cheap price at like $9.99, and then then tricked it out with like 4 to 6 terabytes of storage, right? And so it's just relatively amazing machine that I got in the door at a very low entry price, but then was able to beef it up. So again, the notion of this is essentially a gaming tablet, and if you buy it, you've got a Steam Deck ish like capable device with a large display. I've seen some complaints about why doesn't it include a keyboard and things like that. I'm like, well, okay, you can buy like a $10 Bluetooth keyboard. It has a kickstand, and use this thing as a mini tablet, mini laptop, like on the go, and use it for some basic low level compute stuff, and then be able to slap the controllers on and play games with it and watch movies on it and do all sorts of other stuff, 'cause it's got Windows. So it doesn't have even the limitations of like the Steam Deck, right? Where if you want to do more on it than game, you've got to roll your own, with some open source stuff, right, to get it to do that. And I'm not going to watch movies, right, or Superman and Lois or whatever on my Steam Deck, but I would watch it on an iPad. And if you can get an iPad like thing that has game controllers and is really optimized towards gaming, that's a pretty good get. This thing is supposed to come in at $1,100, so we'll see how the market sits with that. But they're offering a heck of a lot more storage than most entry level devices are. and if you get like a smaller, 7-inch, 8-inch handheld, and you wouldn't have that much storage in it, you're going to wind up paying, close to that price anyway, and you're not going to have as big a screen. So, you know, it'll be interesting, like, to see how it plays on the market. I've always been impressed with, what Acer does with, tablets and things. So we'll see.
Yeah,
Uh,
just under 2 pounds, by the way, is the weight.
yeah, it'll be
This
heavy,
bad
but like
boy.
you said, but it has a kickstand, and the controllers detach, right? So if you don't,
Yeah,
so in something like an airplane, right? When if you're playing, during takeoff and landing, and you can't have your tray table down, um, that seems like it's a neat little capability. And then, in other scenarios, like, when I have to take my kid to swim practice or whatever, I sit out and, the lobby, right, of the pool area, and, can work on my tablet or a laptop, and, in that type of scenario, you throw the kickstand down, pull the controllers off. So, um go ahead and keep pushing on to the next news story in the rundown, which is about the story that Hal skipped, kind of in the lead into that, which is all about the NVIDIA RTX 50 series. And so I'm going to kind of try and give the Reader's Digest, right, and roll up all this information. Um, but just one news story of note, over on Hot Hardware, a news story by Zach Killian, GeForce RTX 5090 versus RTX 4090 DLSS 4 versus DLSS 3 image quality and performance demo. There's some footage. Come along with us as we dive straight into what could be the future of gaming graphics, direct from the CES 2025 show floor. NVIDIA's keynote marked the official unveiling of the RTX 50 series GPUs and their crown jewel DLSS 4. The show was a nonstop roundabout of announcements, but we had the opportunity to stop and smell the coffee with NVIDIA's Ray Washington to see these advancements in action, and trust us, it's worth getting excited about. So, there's video here that shows frame rate differences, with DLSS 3 getting 138 frames, but with DLSS 4 getting 329 frames. And then, comparisons of image quality. Another thing that was thematic to CES 2025 this year is a lot of very high frame rate monitors that were also on display by vendors, featuring OLED displays. And so as OLED displays come up, in and kind of supplant really the market segment where IPS is really kind of occupied a lot of the market demand. We're also getting these monitors that are able to push greater refresh rates, based on the OLED technology. So a lot of 500 hertz monitors and things like that. So, with these 5000 series cards coming out, and then, I've put up my 25-inch 240 hertz displays. I was playing Call of Duty on my 27-inch 144 hertz displays. So, and now you're getting 27-inch OLEDs with 240 hertz, 500 hertz, 360 hertz. Um, I think you're going to start seeing a lot of gamers and some demand around those, prettier displays, better colors, better blacks, better color gamut, and then able to push those frame rates, when accompanied by a card like an RTX 5000 series. So, I think the display space is going to heat up a lot this year. But getting to the RTX 50 series roundup, we've got the 5090, the 5080, the 5070 Ti, and the 5070 coming out. Excuse me. Um, 5090 has about just south of 22,000 CUDA cores clocked at 2.01 gigahertz, boost clock of 2.41 gigahertz, 32 gigabytes of GDDR7 memory, 512-bit wide memory interface. And let me stop there on the 5090. I think part of the ongoing dialogue in the gaming community and by a lot of pundits, where they are getting things wrong, is that the 5090 feels very much like the Apple Vision Pro. People talked about and people wrote articles about the Apple Vision Pro as if it was a consumer product, and the Apple Vision Pro was never meant for consumers, for general consumers. It's same thing for the 5090. When you look at where the 5090 is priced in comparison to the 5080, remember that a large part of what happens with CPU pricing and GPU pricing is is trying to limit the amount of strategic gaps where your competitor can slide in and offer similar to performance or comparative performance at a lower price. And so they if when they leave a gap, they want to make sure that it's a gap they leave where they think their competitor can't price a product that offers a suitable substitute, right, for cards that are bracketing it. There's a $1,000 price gap between the 5080 and the 5090. That is not what NVIDIA normally does. That is an AMD and Intel size semi truck that they could drive a 20 bajillion SKUs into, right? To try and say, well, we offer more performance in the 5080, less performance in the 5090, but here, look at the price point, the price sweet spot, right, that we're lining you up in. That is intentional. That is not a mistake. And so the 5090, just like, people need to get their heads wrapped around, the 5090 is not meant for general gamer consumers. It is meant for at-home developers who want to run AI ML workloads. Um, Otherwise that price gap wouldn't be there. Um, Going on to talk about uh the 5080, it's basically half of a 5090. Now what you'll see over time is you expect to see a 5080 Ti, a 5080 Super, but the 5080 will be 11,000 CUDA cores. Remember, I just said the 5090 was about just south of 22,000 CUDA cores. They're clocked at 2.3 gigahertz with a boost clock of 2.6 gigahertz. In comparison to the 4080, the 4080 has about 9,800 CUDA cores. So it's about 2,000 CUDA cores more than the 4080. 5080 will have a 30 gigabits per second GDDR7 RAM, 256-bit bus. I want to say I've seen that card at, I think that's a 16 gigabyte card. I think it might be 20. I'm not absolutely certain. It's not popping out at me right now. The 5070 Ti and 5070 Ti is 6,000 CUDA cores. Yeah, the 5070 is 6,100 CUDA cores. The 5070 Ti is about 9,000 CUDA cores. Also GDDR7 RAM. I'm pretty sure the bus width is 192 on the higher card. 5070 Ti is clocked at 2.3 gigahertz, max turbo 2.45 gigahertz. It is 16 gigabytes of GDDR7. Thought this article was a little more organized. It gets less and less organized as I go down further in it. And then the 5070 is, like I said, 6,100 CUDA cores, 2.16 gigahertz with a higher clock, with a higher turbo, 2.51 gigahertz to help make up for the lower core count. So as you would expect, right? These cards here, but there's a huge gap, right? Huge distance between capability on the 5080 to the 5090. It's a huge leap. Like I said, over time you'll see that filled in, but those price differentials. The 5080, really nice card because it's coming in at a grand MSRP, which means it's lower MSRP than the 4080 launched with. Coming in at the same MSRP that the 4080 Super launched with. So that's a really good price, right, in comparison to what the 4000 series launched at. Price wise, again, the 5090 is $2,000 at $1,999. The 5080 is $999. 5070 Ti is $749 MSRP, and the 5070 is $550 MSRP. So again, they're launching the 5070 now. NVIDIA has been known to do shenanigans with SKUs and kind of seat SKUs in the starting in the 4000 generation at price points within the spectrum that we are not accustomed to. But the 5070 right now is sitting where normally you would expect the 5060 to sit at, which means when the 5060 rolls out, It may come in as a sub $500 card, right? Which would be impressive because we've really eroded and gotten rid of the notion of the $500 budget GPU. Um, so it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. Ramon mentions, I do my homework on major purchases, but if I didn't have knowledgeable friends such as you, oh, and Slomo, I might have been sucked in by the 50/70 equals 40/90 talk. Um, yeah, I mean, Slomo said it, and I completely agree with him. Let's wait and see what official benchmarks say. I'll say, it all depends. I mean, different people are going to tell you different things. The way I've aligned to over the years is lots of people poo poo on synthetic benchmarks, but they're the ones that I go by, um, is less so than the real world benchmarks. Um, do I care how the 5,000 series card benchmarks against a game that I've already bought and that I'm already playing? Or do I care about where I expect the 5,000 series card to perform um, in comparison, in conjunction with games that are coming out? Games that are going to come out next year or the year after that. I care much more so about the future. When I'm buying a brand new GPU, I already have GPUs to play the games that are already out, so I don't really care about whether or not so I don't know, but people are different, so everybody's going to give you kind of different advice on that topic. I think the biggest thing that I always get concerned with these new cards is um do I need a new power supply? That has been more than anything, right? As power supply connectors have changed in particular. um so many of my upgrades over the last few years have been oriented around, is this thing gonna force me to buy a new power supply? And then when it pushes me down that road, um now I'm buying a new power supply. I am what this thing is doing. I'm buying a new power supply. I have to pull the power harness off the motherboard, off the CPU, off the 4-pin connector off the CPU. I have to do all this stuff. And then I go, okay, well, am I now at the point where I just want to do a new build? So all those upgrades get intertwined. I'm having a hard time pulling up the the specs. But I looked at these earlier. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure the 5090 recommended CPU. Oh, here we go. Recommended CPU is a 1000 watt PSU, or CPU is a 1000 watt PSU. Now, sometimes people will poo poo on whether or not you really need what NVIDIA recommends to you for a power supply. I will say that's just not a game that I play. Um, I have one time, I went in and did like all of the actual like wattage calculations over all the parts in a box, and I figured I could get away with like a power supply that was like 50 watts less than what NVIDIA recommended. But I did that one time, and I did that for a limited period of time. And I'm like, in general, I'm just for the safety of myself and my equipment, I'm just buying the power supply size that they recommend. I'm not asking a lot of questions about it. So and for the 5090, they want you on a 1000 watt power supply. For the 5080, which I think will be the one that most people, a lot of gamers are attracted to go after. That is an 850 watt power supply that they recommend. And generally, when I look at the recommendation, I also tend to go like the next level up from that. So if you're not on these power supplies and you don't have a 12-volt high power connector, and yes, I know there's a slight esoteric difference, I guess, I think that the difference between the 12-volt high power connector and the 12-volt um 2x6 power connector, it's the same number of pins, which is like 12 on the harness now, but the two, I think the 2V by 6 or whatever is the one with like the recess pin in it. So um when if the curvature of the cable going into the connector is such that there would be a disconnect, that it will tend to not short out and cause a short circuit in your card and burn out your power supply pin and wiring harness, which was the problem with the with the with the 4090s. And then for the 5070 Ti and the 5070, those NVIDIA is recommending for the 5070 Ti that you have a 750-watt power supply, and for the 5070 that you have a 650-watt power supply. So I think that covers most of like the big ticket items that I wanted to make sure that we got through with the 5000 series cards. AMD, of course, announced their 90,000 series cards as well. They are not, AMD is not going head to head with NVIDIA this time around. So they're not trying to get a card out to compete with the 5090 or the 5080. They're putting out cards oriented around competing with like the 5070 tier cards. I don't remember seeing pricing for the 9070, so I'll try and dig that up later. But look for the pricing on that, because if you're a 5070 Ti 5070 type of person looking for that 750 550 type level card, you're gonna, if you're interested in AMD, that'll be the alternative that you want to look at, depending on what that AMD price is.
Yeah, I don't see a price. I'm just looking real quick, but it does say Q1 of 2025. So then the next few months, pretty similar. And I think these ones are supposed to be this month, right? If not already, they're out, or at least for pre-order.
Yeah, supposedly. I mean, as far as we know, we believe retailers have them in their hands, and the sale embargo is supposed to go up. I think right about the time of the Xbox Direct. So I think about the somewhere around the 23rd or the 28th later this month, they're supposed to go on sale. You want to go on to the next news story?
Yeah. So real quick, we had some, as I mentioned before, we had some Nintendo leaks once again. I think last year we had a carrying case from D brand that got released as their kill switch carrying case, and the CEO had mentioned that it was based off of actual dimensions of the actual system. And then we had another one, I think it might have been just right before CES had started, or at least officially started. We had Genki, I believe is how you pronounce it. They had also showed off some accessories, basically from the same thing. They had like a mock-up of the actual Switch 2 or whatever it would be called system, and they kind of showed it off how obviously the it was basically like a case or like a cover for the actual system, and then they're showing the actual system or the mock-up of it, where it was you could see the Joy-Cons, I guess they're going to be called again, kind of coming off, and there's a big rumor that, or speculation, the leak, whatever you want to call it, that those are going to be magnetic now, so you're not going to be sliding them on and off like you used to with the old system. But we then of course had an official response from Nintendo, which states the images and videos are not official, says Nintendo in a statement in a Japanese newspaper, Senki Shinbun. 3D printed mock-ups and renders are clearly not official, but I have a feeling it's only a matter of days until Switch 2 is officially announced. I don't know about that. I think I was kind of saying too they should just announce it, but Nintendo's usually pretty hard-nosed about stuff. If they said they're not going to announce anything until after the fiscal end of the year, fiscal year end of for them, they're not going to they're probably just not going to do that. That's just kind of how they are. I'm assuming like that's just kind of figures in and everything. But even though they said that it's not official, they didn't actually say they're not correct. That's not actually what it is. So who knows what's actually happened. But I'm assuming if these third party manufacturers and partners with that are with Nintendo, I mean they probably they obviously have some kind of, at least at the very least, some kind of dimensions of the actual system. So I think we probably pretty much know what it's more or less going to at least basically look like. But I thought it was just kind of interesting how Nintendo actually even made a statement. I'm kind of surprised, but I guess kind of not either, because I guess they kind of have to say something for all this stuff's coming out. And I guess on the show floor, at least for the news sites and such, that they saw like an actual mock-up of the system, just because once again these vendors or these manufacturers have obviously some kind of mock-up or something of the system. So they're just kind of showing that off. So we'll see. Technically we still have until I believe the end of March, probably be at their end of their fiscal year, so we have a few months still before we actually know anything. But just kind of obviously out of the leaks and stuff. Once again, people are speculating about the magnetic Joy-Cons. I guess the only really like official things that we know of is the backwards compatibility of the system. That was said by the president himself, but a few months ago, or maybe even earlier last year, on the system. So I mean that's really all that's really all we know so far. Just dimension wise, I guess for some of the speculation, people are thinking looks like it's going to be around an 8-inch screen. So about I think about the same, if not a little bit bigger than OLED. I think Game Logic, you have the OLED, right? Is that how big it was, or is it a little
I
bit smaller?
I had one.
Oh, I had one. I'm sorry. That's right. I forgot you
I,
got rid of them all.
I don't recall what the screen size was because
Okay.
I was about to answer, but what's in my head is the OLED screen for the Steam Deck,
Oh, yeah,
which is I think it is that's a slightly larger screen than the original Steam Deck, I believe. Um,
yeah. I
but
think
I
it's a
may
little
be
bit
getting
bigger.
them mixed up. But yeah, I think it's an 8-inch screen. I think.
Okay. Yeah. They haven't officially said if it's going to be an actual OLED for the new one, but obviously, but well, I think speculation probably thinks it's just going to be regular LCD screen, more likely again. Hopefully not, but OLED. From what you said and from what I've heard, is it looked really nice on the OLED screen. So, and then most likely I'll have the full body kickstand instead of just that little dinky thing that the the original Switch had, because that was could snap off pretty easily. But um, anything, any comments on these? I mean, obviously, these are kind of just rumors and stuff, but it looks like the leaks are coming like kind of fast and furious, especially now that CES had come out. So
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, my hopes are, I don't know what the point is in going backwards. So I would hope that all the advancements that came with the Switch OLED stick around. That the dock comes with an Ethernet port. Although you know you were always able to hook up. If you bought the Fire TV adapter. My original Switch, I had run Ethernet to it, so those things were there, but it was certainly more convenient, right, to have it natively embedded in the dock chassis. So, um, hopefully that sticks there. Hopefully, it's an OLED screen. I don't know why you would need to bother to go backwards with an LCD screen. Um, but yeah, it'll be interesting. The year will be exciting, right, for new stuff coming out. So let's go on to the final news story. So, a bit here about consumer advocacy. This news story over on GameSpot. The U.S. government wants to hear your in-game currency nightmare stories by Cameron Coach. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau (CFPB) is looking for feedback from players as it proposes a new rule revolving around in-game currencies and transactions that would allow the current Electronic Fund Transfer Act (EFTA) and the protections it grants to consumers to apply to certain video game companies. So, in general, what's going on is, um, you're the consumer support for wackadoodle things that happen to you with your in-game currency. Should your account ever get hacked, or should you attempt to make a purchase, more often, it's not infrequent that a a player tries to go make a microtransaction purchase using their in-game currency, like their COD points or whatever, and tries to buy something, and for some reason there's a glitch and the transaction doesn't go through, and you wind up not getting the content, that you paid for. Very frequently you are incentivized, just because you think that it's a glitch, to try and put the transaction through a second time, and then you're out 400 V bucks or whatever the case may be. And now you're in the situation of doing the thing that, like, I personally loathe ever having to do, which is to contact a company about something that's supposed to happen automatically, and attempt to get a hold of a human being to address my problem. Sometimes with that BattleNet authenticator, I've had to go to BattleNet customer support, which is just so they're trying, they're the CFPB is taking a look at, how frequently does this happen? What have players' experiences been going to customer support? Has it been reasonable? Is it fair? You have companies like Steam, who still, in my opinion, have like a draconian refund regime with the 2 hour, 2 hour limit. Quite honestly, Valve gets a bad rap for it, but the console manufacturers are even worse. Like PlayStation, if you pay for the game, they don't even wait for you to play the game. If you download the game, they just say, hey, nope, you bought it, you own it. So lots of these things in America in particular are just egregious. The rest of the world has much better. Europe, Australia has much better consumer advocacy and customer protections in place, and regulatory regimes that really put things much more so in fair equity on the side of the consumer. So let's my hope is that something gets positive comes out of this that protects consumers a little bit. um the unfortunate thing is, in I'm not trying to turn this political, I'm just citing it as a matter of public record. In fact, the CFPB is exactly one of the government agencies that things like the I can't remember what Musk and Ramaswamy's uh, outfit is called, the Government Efficiency Bureau or whatever, is exactly one of the things that have been discussed of shutting down, right, and eradicating. So um, unfortunately, should that happen, like things like this, these protections won't wouldn't happen. I don't know what government agency would take over and absorb that responsibility, and it's not unlikely that it would just go away. As far as an agency that is kind of on the lookout for consumers, and their advocacy and support. So we will monitor this and see if it goes anywhere. Let's go ahead and move on to segment 3. I'm trying to keep pushing forward to get us out of here. Um, just want to finalize the rundown of anything else that we've been playing. Obviously, we did a super deep dive over the last 2 weeks on Black Ops 6. Um, but the remaining dangling participles of stuff that we've played, I also played a little bit of Fallout 76 this week. Won't talk too much about it. I played it while I was sick, so I spent a large amount of time just staring at the screen, or the screen staring back at me, as I, dozed off and wavered in and out of a fever dream. Um, but I did progress the campaign a little bit. Ran into some like 236 level character who was trying to get me to stop and interact with him, and I'm like, I don't. What, I'm level 1. Like, what could we possibly have to do together? No, thanks. I'm not interested. So I just kept pushing on through the campaign. It's interesting. The story doesn't have as many of kind of the heartfelt hooks that like some of the past Fallout games have in their story opening. But it's definitely kind of breadcrumby in terms of like it's laying like a lot of these things in more of a live service fashion than an RPG fashion, I think, in comparison to past Bethesda games that I've played. So, but we'll just see where it goes. Obviously, the game is oriented around getting you through this incubation campaign and then sending you on to, absorb and participate in more of the chapter and modular and live service content. But we'll see if it keeps my interest. Right now it's just something that I've seen from its relatively poor launch to gaining some traction with the Steam community and a more positive perspective from user reviews. So I'm having a fine time with it right now. Tao, what else have you been playing?
Yeah, just been going through No Man's Sky, still doing the expeditions. The Aquarius expedition is up now. It just started this past week, I think, on Wednesday. So I'll run for a couple weeks from this past year's slew of expeditions they do. This one introduced fishing, so always got to have fishing in a good survival game. So I'm going through that, and then the other game I've been playing other than the Black Ops has been Marvel Rivals. Their season 1 has dropped, called Eternal Night Falls, and that introduced the Fantastic Four for characters you can use, which you can only use Sue and Reed Richards right now, and I'm assuming maybe mid season they'll drop the Thing in Human Torch, I would assume, or maybe sprinkle them throughout the rest of the season, which is 3 months, like any other battle pass and season of late of these type of games. So it's been pretty cool. They've released. Well, they said they released 2 maps. I haven't seen the second map so far, but one is Midtown, which basically starts you where you're around the Baxter Building, the Fantastic Four's downtown building, and then the Sanctum Sanctorium, which obviously is Doctor Strange's house. But I haven't seen that one in the rotation yet. So it's a little bit of Call of Duty action there. I haven't seen that one yet. And then eventually will release Central Park later in the season. So, and then along with that, they have released a new game mode called Doom Match, which is basically I haven't played it yet, but it sounds like it is a team deathmatch mode, but instead of so points are allocated to the individuals instead of the whole team. So it's team deathmatch, but at the end of the day, it's like how good you did at the end, just yourself. So it's like a lone wolf mode. So it sounds like it's kind of weird. And then that's pretty much it. They haven't released any other modes since then. And then just going back to Reed and Sue real quick. Reed is a duelist, which is basically a DPS character, which I find kind of weird. I've played both. He's good, but you really have to have, well, when I was playing him, you really have to have a good team behind you to, I think, to do very well with him. And then Sue is a strategist, aka a healer, which I kind of thought that she was going to be that. So, and she plays really well. She's actually, I can see them actually maybe nerfing her a little during either the next season or if however they do, the character balancing from season 0 to this first season. They didn't do any character balancing until the first season started. So I don't know if they're going to do that the same thing this coming season, even though season 0 is only what, a month and a half ish, a little or so. So since season's a lot longer, I wonder if they'll do like a mid-season balancing, because they did do a balancing of a lot of characters once the season 1 started. So we'll have to see how that plays out, because she's pretty strong with some of her moves. And I was playing her like, when she first came out, and I was doing pretty well with her. So I can only see, like the pros or whoever's, gets their hands on it, they're just going to totally dominate with her. So it's pretty interesting. But then that's pretty much it. I've just been playing those kind of 3 games off and on throughout the week.
All right, we will close out the show with running down the list of significant releases this week. Week of Monday, the 13th of January. Thing that piques my interest huge, even though it's only an early access launch, is the next iteration in the Assetto Corsa series will be out this week, supposedly on the 16th, which is Thursday. Assetto Corsa Evo for PC. As far as I know, that's a 505 Games published game. It is coming to Steam. I'm not sure what other outlets it might be coming to, whether it's coming to GOG or the Epic Game Store. Also out this week, Donkey Kong Country Returns HD on the Nintendo Switch, also out this Thursday on the 16th of January. And then, interestingly, a return of do we call these Mishu type games? I can't remember. But Dynasty Warriors Origins out on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, X and S, and Nintendo Switch and PC, launching on the 17th of January, so this Friday. How any of those catching your interest at all?
Yeah, I definitely want to check out Dynasty Warriors. I haven't played a Dynasty Warriors game in a while, so I'll probably check that one out. I'm kind of surprised it's coming on Switch. Although, I mean, I guess they've had those type of games before, but I don't know. I would figure they might have waited until the next iteration of the Switch before putting that on there, because they've had like the Zelda and I think Fire Emblem iterations of those type of games. So, obviously those are in-house, so they can do it a little better. But I'm just kind of surprised it was coming for Switch. But I'll pick it up on Park PC. Hopefully, I'll have a report out next week.
Yeah, I was surprised that game was coming day and date to both Switch and PC. I would have thought it would have launched on PlayStation and Xbox first, and then gone to the other platforms later. But interesting play. That's going to do it for us for tonight. Again, second week in a row running long. It's beginning of the year, had a ton of stuff to get through. So hope you guys appreciate it. Next week, Tao will be up, the host. So in DBQ and I will be flying co-pilot So until next time, take care of yourself. Stay safe out there. Jeez, I am all off because I'm starting to lose my voice. Until next week, great Scott. Now I'm completely forgetting my outro. um, Stay safe out there. Play the games that you like. Come here to talk to us about the games that you love. Once again, my name has been Game Logic on the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube. One of the co-hosts here on the Enough to Keep Going Weekly Games podcast. Been here with my partner in crime, Talmaster99. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.